This episode of Talk Raytown is brought to you by Jason Snedden with Greater KC Homes. Whether you're buying or selling, Greater KC Homes turns your dreams into reality. Jason Snedden is your local agent to help you invest in your future. Greater KC Homes is by your side every step of the way. The only name you need to know in real estate is Greater KC Homes, helping people achieve the dream of home ownership. Call Jason at 816-642-5319 or jason at greaterkchomes.com.
Welcome back to Talk Raytown. I'm Zac Sweets, and I am still your host for another episode. If it looks a little different, it's because we're in a new place, and we want to give a special thank you to the Raytown Quality Schools for the great digs and the equipment to get us up and going for our next episode, this episode of Talk Raytown. And on this one, we have someone from the Raytown Police Department, and not just someone. We have Captain Jared Rogers, who has been with the Raytown Police Department for 22 years. Captain Rogers is the Patrol Division Commander, and I think this conversation we're about to have is going to be just like, 4 episodes worth. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a lot of good information, really, to just know in general. So let me just start with probably the most difficult question that I have, because a lot of the rest of it I'm just really curious about. And I say difficult only because it could have a million different answers. What is it like being on the police force in Raytown, and what is the community relationship interaction like in 2024?
I'll start by saying this. I am from Raytown. Let me back that up. I went to Southwood Elementary, Raytown South Middle School, and Raytown South High School. So if anybody's looking into being a police officer, I would say if you can be a police officer in your hometown, you should. That's kind of what brought me back here. So been doing it for 22 years now. I've done just about everything that the police department has to offer me. And it's been, like a bunch of opportunities I never thought I'd really have. I've gotten to be a detective. I've gotten to supervise detectives, a member of our tactical team, all those sorts of fun things that people really want to do as a police officer. It's all there for you at Raytown Police Department, 737-6020.
There you go.
But I really think, having kind of spanned 22 years now, we've had some ebbs and flows with our relationship with the community. I think at this point, we actually have a good relationship with our community. Are they going to complain about some of the things that we do or how we handle some of the things that we handle? Yeah, they are, because it's never going to be exactly what one side wants or one person wants. The world just doesn't work that way. We try to handle everything as professionally as we can, to most people's satisfaction, but our base citizenry, I think we have a pretty good relationship with. Some folks who don't live in Raytown come into Raytown to, do nefarious things and then leave. And those are the folks that we generally don't generally have a favorable view of us, I would say. And that, I don't think that's specific to Raytown either. I think that's pretty much across the board. Folks don't generally commit crimes where they live, by and large.
Oh, I didn't realize that. I just assumed people committed crimes in their hometown.
They do. I mean, they do. But if we were to pull statistics, I think from the higher percentage of people who are stopped in vehicles, or the higher percentage of people who do commit crimes within our city limits, you'd find that the higher percentage of them are not from here.
Interesting. And I shouldn't say interesting. It makes sense with the way that our region is shaped. The bi-state element of it, and then just kind of how close to downtown, and I say downtown, but the city, Kansas City proper, some of our metros are, metro towns are like Raytown.
Yeah,
you're going to have a lot of in between, up north, south coming through. That makes sense.
And we have, this is an old study, so I would probably get fact check on this today, but at one point in my time at Raytown, the Missouri Department of Transportation estimated that 80,000 vehicles traveled east-west on 50 highway in every 24-hour cycle.
Oh, wow.
And that's an insane amount of people.
Yeah. So when you're trying to you're sworn to protect and serve this community, and trying to do that at a time when I think everyone, I think most professions are probably looking for folks to hire. I actually heard the chief say one point in time, of all the metro police departments, for recruitment, you all are fishing from the same holes, typically, just like trying to pull the best talent from the same fishing hole. What has just the outcomes of potential staffing needs? What does those outcomes look like for Raytown?
Well, there's a great story behind that that happened today. But let me move forward just a little bit on that. We do the same recruiting fairs that everybody else does. And again, we are all essentially fishing from the same small pond. It's a small pond. Not everybody wants to do this job because it's hard. And, over the last several years, it's been viewed fairly negatively. I don't think that's I'm talking out of school there. It really has, man. Okay. There's a whole different discussion there. But so there are like 3 academies in the metro area, one of which is associated with the Blue River Community College. One is Kansas City's academy, and then the University of Central Missouri has one as well. So and these are relatively small classes that we're all trying to get folks from. Mm-hmm. But also, there are folks in those classes who have things in their backgrounds that we can't hire. Mm. Maybe it's a felony conviction or something like that somebody thought that we might not find. And that is the importance of doing real diligence on a background investigation. So we're finding, I would tell you this, as of today, we've hired 12 people in the last year.
Okay.
So we're doing really well as of today.
How many you need to fill?
So our fiscal year runs from 1 November through 31 October, right? Mm-hmm. As of 1 November, we had 12 openings.
Okay.
No, let me back that up. We had
in this fiscal
15.
year.
Yes.
In this fiscal year currently, there were 50?
15.
15. And you have, at this point in time, hired 12.
We just hired one today. So, yeah.
13 maybe. Or is that the 12th?
That includes him.
Okay,
yeah.
So that's the 12th.
Yeah.
So, performing pretty well in terms of
recruiting. We're doing well. Yeah, we are. Now, that includes some folks who were working for some smaller agencies who we pay more than, that we're looking for a better opportunity to make more money, mm-hmm. to do the same kind of job. So there are some of those in there that were a little easier. And some of those included younger folks who had to go to the police academy, that we liked their demeanor, mm-hmm. and there was nothing in their background that would keep them from being able to be a police officer in Raytown. So we've gotten some of those as well. I think we're doing really well in that category.
Why do you think you all have been successful in filling most of those spots?
Hustle.
What does hustle look like?
It involves me getting out there and essentially being the face of Raytown PD. And I'm not trying to wag my tail too much, but I think of myself as a pretty high energy guy, and I like to get out there and talk about the place that's afforded me so much opportunity. Mm-hmm. And I think that translates some. Like I said, I don't even know that we were rolling. We were talking about the last career fair that I went to. Fully half of the folks from different agencies look like they did not want to be there.
On assignment, they're there.
Yeah, they're like, hey, I need to. Mm-hmm. And that's just kind of how it went. But our delegation went and had a good time with it. Smile, look like you enjoy working. Yeah,
a smile goes a long way.
It really does. So we generated 3 applications out of that career fair alone, which we felt pretty good about because we have gone before and gotten 0.
Sure.
We've gone to some veteran career fairs as far out as Fort Riley, Kansas, Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, Whiteman Air Force Base, kind of regionally.
Yeah.
There, folks who are leaving the military and maybe they're from this area and are looking to come back. So we haven't had a ton of success there. I'll be honest about that. But locally, I think that we've been doing really well.
So before I ask you about, who are you looking for? Your opportunity to get a free promotion, so folks know, hey, if you got a family member or you yourself, send them to the KC or to the. Let me back up. So hey, if you have a family member or you yourself, send them to the Raytown Police Department if they might be interested. Before I ask you that question, though, of what a good candidate looks like, let me dig a little bit deeper and just ask a hard question I said I wasn't going to ask. Let's say I'm a potential recruit and I say, hey, you mentioned it. There hasn't been a lot of positive press I shouldn't say not a lot of, but in recent time there were bigger stories.
Yeah, let's be honest about it.
Yeah, bigger stories that generated some energy throughout the country. How do you answer that question about how that broader conversation relates to Raytown?
It's really easy. When a lot of those conversations were being had, almost none of them were being had with police officers. So if somebody's acting outside of what the eye test would tell you is normal or justifiable or okay, I don't recall anybody ever asking me what I thought about it, because I want bad players out of the game too, period. I want folks showing up at Raytown PD at our front door, or even Kansas City for that matter, or wherever, folks that we're going to have to work with.
So you're saying the eye test, internal, external?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, I feel like most reasonable folks, and that's the standard that we're held to, the reasonable person standard, can look at an incident like, that is not okay.
Mm-hmm.
But you could also look at an incident like, I don't know enough about it to say. But there are some that you can just say, that's not okay. And I think that's pretty standard across the board for us or for folks who don't know. This could be a whole different conversation, but even a justified use of force from a police officer is probably going to look pretty bad. There's just no way around it.
It's use of force.
It's just not going to be pretty.
Yeah.
We just want folks showing up who are good, solid people. That's really it.
Mm-hmm.
And what's your attitude towards the career field, and are you a decent person? I mean, that's the biggest one, because you can't teach that.
Yeah.
We can teach folks how to write reports and apply handcuffs and, drive with lights and sirens on and stuff like that. But we can't teach folks necessarily how to be a good person. And that's really what we're looking for.
So that good person, what do I need to know about eligibility? If I am that good person, but I might not know if I could pass, the physical test, or maybe I'm too short. I don't know. Whatever reason I can come up with in my brain that I'm a good person, but maybe that might not be for me. What are you actually looking for?
Yeah. So thankfully those height restrictions have kind of gone the way of the dodo and things like that. Really, I'm a big believer. If you self-select, you're done before you even show up.
Mm-hmm. So
don't self-select. If you think it's because you physically might not be able to do it, okay, well, when you go to the police academy, you're going to get plenty of physical activity. I would equate it to joining the military. It's not going to be quite as strenuous, but along those lines, right? And I can tell you at Raytown PD, our physical agility test, just, to get in the door and get into that, it's not very difficult. It's 90 seconds of your life to jog around a little bit, jump over a fence, and drag a dummy, So I would say if you're looking down that line and you're not quite 21 yet or something like that, just get out and move around. Motion is lotion.
Mm-hmm.
Get out and move your body a little bit, build up a little bit of strength, and I think that you'll be just fine. And for police work, for anything in life, if you self-select, you're already done. So that's really just kind of what we're looking for. Folks who are not going to self-select, get out there and give it a shot. We're going to fail more times in life than we succeed. Mm-hmm. So if you try and fail, there's no shame in that. Learn from it, pick yourself up, figure out what it is that you need to do to get stronger, come back and try again. I wouldn't look down on somebody who tried and failed rather than just never tried.
I'm sure there's plenty of folks on the force that it took more than one time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of being on the force, let's talk about the job in Raytown. And one of the things that I did to try to prepare is just look at just the information that's available. And when we started talking, there was something that was beyond the numbers that is still important to talk about. And I think it's also just being here, the Raytown Quality Schools, something that we ought to address on this podcast. But in the last, since school started in the last week or even, what kind of activity have you all seen as it relates to schools?
Yeah, so we've had some cussing and discussing internally.
I love that. Say that again so I can use it.
So we have some cussing and discussing internally about, the difference when we were kind of growing up and how things would go if you wanted to get out of school, and that was pulling a firearm. Not
sure.
that I'm advocating that. Please don't take it that way. It's just that was kind of the thing because it made the most sense. And in the past, I would say week and a half or so, we dealt with a lot more threats to the schools than we have seen in any other year that I can remember. And it's a little bit horrifying because you don't know whether it's real.
Right.
You don't. And I mean, the school shooting thing has kind of become a hot button topic here in our country because it keeps happening.
Mm-hmm.
And that too is horrifying. So how to get out ahead of that? Well, I don't know that you really do, other than your SROs and your school security officers being a little bit more switched on these days, and dialogue with these kids. I'm fearful that we're not doing that well enough, but the FBI had gotten involved because, they have a lot more resources when it comes to mining digital evidence.
Mm-hmm.
But we were seeing a lot of that, and you look at it and you're thinking, this is just kids blowing off steam that don't want to go to school. And that may well be the case, but these are our kids. They're like the most precious resources we have. So we have to protect the rest of them who aren't making these threats from the possibility that one of these things could happen.
Right.
So it's kind of where we were at this past week. It was there was quite a bit more of it than we've seen in any other year that I can remember.
Has there been, especially with, gosh, if we could probably pull the tapes, if you will, on all the news reporting just in the last 18 months of how many incidences around the country. Those are the ones that were real, that actually had to have responses, not even the ones that you're talking about that were investigated and properly handled.
Sure.
What kind of learning has the Raytown Police Department had to do to make sure that they're prepared? Because one thing I understand about our emergency services is preparedness training.
Yes.
Preparedness training.
Yeah. So we essentially, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds about what we have done or what we haven't done, but we have a pretty good training base for active shooter. And though it predates me a little bit, the incident in Columbine changed everything about the way we respond to this, because previous to that it was surround, call out the SWAT team, and let them go do their business. And that's just not the way things are going to be moving forward, or it shouldn't be, I guess I should say. So I feel like our training at Raytown PD is up to that task. We talk about it a lot. In between the ranks and the officers, the supervisors, we talk about it a lot. Mm-hmm. You've got to be able to talk about things aggressively, or you probably won't be able to do those things aggressively when it's time. So we do a lot of talking about it as well, force on force scenarios that we do for one another. And then the school's been gracious enough to give us key cards, thank goodness. And we're building some really solid inroads with the security company that our school district contracts with in ways that we haven't had in a bunch of previous years. We were actually invited to their training, which we attended, so it was really cool. Yeah.
That's I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry.
That's I asked the question because the other side of it is kind of just pull back the curtain. It's one thing to hear that we're ready, but it's another thing to actually hear what that
that's fair.
means.
That's very fair.
And like you said, with the precious resource that are our children, folks probably are more interested in what does that look like for you, for the police department.
Yeah,
it's and I think you did a great job of answering that.
It's a lot of sweat, and it's a lot of consternation, because that sort of thing is going to get you ramped up.
Yeah,
it really is. So how do we do that? Stress inoculation through training. That's one of the, if not the number one way that we're going to be able to deal with that effectively. And then a lot of talking about it, just because you just don't want to be caught surprised if it does come to your town.
Mm-hmm. One thing that you did say that I almost forgot to ask you about was you have an opinion of engaging in dialogue with young folks.
Sure.
What is that impact? Do you believe that would have on outcomes?
Well, I've got 4, so those conversations have
you've been training, is what you're saying.
Yeah, oh my goodness. They've been training me. Probably not in the right way. Yeah. And my youngest are in school. One of them is in school, but and two of them are out of school. That's a long story right there. But anyway, so talking to them about what happens, I'll give you a great example. We had a discussion with my oldest daughter about sneaking out when she was a teenager, right? And not necessarily in trouble for the sneaking out, but I am in zero, and this is going to sound like I'm a control freak. It's not the case, but I have zero way to protect you if you sneak out, and I don't know about it. Mm-hmm. So I would love for kiddos to know when we show up, we're going to do everything we can to protect you. Also, you have to have real conversations with them about weapons. That's real. You have to have conversations about listening to the administrative staff and teachers and stuff if they get locked down, and be serious about it. So yeah, I think it can. The younger that you talk to those kids without scaring them,
right,
the better off that you are. And teenagers are teenagers. It's hard to tell them anything sometimes.
Yeah,
but in the same vein, those kiddos are just trying to go to school and get an education, move on with the next step of their life, and this is the last thing that they should have to worry about.
Yeah, and it's something that that you're starting to see more intentional approaches to talking to students at an earlier age, especially with some other things like bullying that can also play into some of these outcomes. So let's take a step out. Not that the youth can't commit crimes, but let's take a step out and look at the community at large. One thing that I did look at was the incidence reports over the last week, just to prepare for this conversation. And the top of the top incidences we have, they're property crimes. This is a conversation that is not new to the Metro. We've seen a lot of news stories and articles about this. What is the state of property crimes in Raytown right now? Is Raytown seeing a lot more than usual, or?
Yes. How do they say about improv? Yes, and.
Yes, and. That's right.
Yes, and. It's largely due to stolen autos. It's classified as a property crime.
Okay.
I think maybe lawmakers have not ever had their cars stolen. Maybe it seems a little more serious than that. But stolen autos, and largely, it used to be that people would steal cars to go commit other crimes in. Now that does still happen. Don't get me wrong, but with certain brands of cars, it's very easy to steal them. So now we're finding that even younger folks are just doing it, having a little fun, and then dumping it. Mm-hmm. So the theft of vehicles and the recovery of those vehicles is a large part of those numbers that you're talking about here in Raytown specifically.
Yeah. What is that? What is something like property crimes and auto? The time that it takes to address those. What is that? We just talked about having 15 spots open and having to work so hard to get 12. Does that kind of, I don't want to say divert, but is the force having to put more energy into property and auto for a little bit, or does it?
There's no good way to say this. It really kind of evens itself out, manpower hour wise.
Sure.
Because when I do get to work on patrol, I don't get to do it as often as I would like because of the administrative duties and then hiring and stuff like that. But our guys and gals who are out there actually doing the job, it just kind of spreads itself out. The division of labor, I guess, would be a great way to put it. But they do spend a lot of time skulking around looking for the stolen autos to try to recover them for folks, because that's a huge burden on somebody to have their car stolen. I would say that's the biggest piece of it. Yes, there are still folks going out there and destroying property, breaking windows and things like that would be your classical sense of property damage. But it's largely the theft of cars and the recovery of them that are taking up the bulk of our time.
What should I know? If I'm a business owner, or even just a regular community folk that just, my kids go to school, I go to work, and I come home. what about some of these crimes should I be aware of, maybe to look out for,
Sure.
or what can I do to help prevent me from being a victim?
First and foremost, lock your doors. Lock your doors. And I think that because a lot of people, and this is, I'm not pointing fingers, it's just a lot of people don't want to get involved if they see someone skulking around their neighborhood that they don't necessarily think belongs there. Which is really important. Like, we call it situational awareness.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you live in a neighborhood, you generally know who belongs there and who doesn't.
What cars, the people. Yeah.
You generally know. Now, if you see somebody walking down the street with a clipboard and they have a collared shirt on or something like that, it's fair to think that they're probably soliciting door to door. And if you don't want that, just tell them through the door, go away. No harm, no foul. Okay. But if you see somebody, you know, that just, once again, the reasonable person standard, you know, hey, it's midnight and there's a dude, you know, dressed in dark clothing walking down my street. I can't see his face because he's got a hood up or something like that. Yeah. Give us a holler. We can come and check it out. It doesn't necessarily mean that the interaction between us and that person has to be bad. It may be that person lives a couple of streets over from you. You just don't know who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. We can do that without being super confrontational, I think. But yeah, I think that people, where I was heading with that is I think that people undercall when, you know, the spidey sense is tingling and they feel like they should, but I don't want to bother them. This really doesn't seem that important, but it could be. So
yeah. What's that? So, I mean, I'm going to forever be in a recruit mindset as I'm talking to you. I'm a recruit here, and maybe I'm thinking about that. Like, hey, but I might not want to call, or I might not tell other people to call just for something that they're not really sure about. Or if there is a concern about being the engagement with an officer.
Sure.
How would you navigate that conversation of maybe that concern of, I don't know that I want to put another person in that situation.
Yeah.
If that person assumes that could be a negative interaction.
Yeah. One thing I've been telling folks for as many years as I can remember is that we are your police department. Like, you know, I mean, the old joke about I pay your salary. Yes. Okay. But we are the police department for the citizens of Raytown, and your concern equals my concern. So if, you know, that's happening, get us out there. And again, I think, not the best way to say this, you have to be attentive to the expectations of your public, which is why you're seeing pursuits kind of drop. That's not what the public wants from us anymore. Why? Because they're dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
They're incredibly dangerous. And some people die unnecessarily because of them. So the public at large, I'd say across the country in most places, have said, we'd rather not see that. So we're seeing less of them. Cool. I would tell young folks also, if you're going to get into police work, if you think that police chases are equal to police work, I would beg you to look for a different job. So yeah, but there also is the concern, you know, hey, that might be a negative interaction with that person and they could get hurt. I honestly don't know how to navigate that. What I know is that 99% of the officers who are going to go out and contact that person are going to do it in a way that's professional and that nobody has to get hurt. You know, that's the best way that I can describe it, you know? And that even would be a contact where if the person just continued to walk away, what are they really doing?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. You know, we got called on them. They're not doing anything illegally. So now there is how a complaint might get generated. Somebody calls on somebody who's walking down the street at midnight, dressed in dark clothing, and the officer drives by, and that person is not immediately doing something illegal other than walking.
Mm-hmm.
That contact is, if the officer drove by and did not stop to talk to that person, which I know has happened, the person who called us might be unhappy with what happened there. But I mean, it'd be difficult to articulate why we would stop and, you know,
Sure.
shake somebody down just for walking there. So I think that most of our officers, I'm saying most, our officers are in tune with that sort of thing. because that's also something that's expected of us. Stopping somebody and demanding that they ID themselves just because they're walking at midnight through a neighborhood. Could they be up to no good? Yeah, possibly. But just by our presence might mean that they're going somewhere else.
Yeah.
Or like, you know what, tonight's not the night. And those property crimes largely at that hour of the day or hour of the evening, night, are crimes of opportunity. So if you eliminate the opportunity, you can push that off.
No, I appreciate the honest response. Like I said, I wasn't planning on asking that question.
No, it's all good.
But it's also something that is like worth having.
It's real.
Yeah, it is a real thing, and is worth figuring out to talk. And at least, if nothing else, let me just say, if I wasn't in this seat and I was listening on the other end of this recording, I would at least say to myself, okay, that's a response.
Sure.
Instead of just outright dismissing, oh, there's nothing to worry about, there's no problem.
Yeah.
You know, instead of dismissing that's an actual response and something that I can follow up with you about.
For sure. And I would love for folks, anyone who's listening, to know that's how that may go. You know, you call us because of this person, we show up and we see them and they're not doing anything, and we opt not to stop to contact them to make them identify themselves or something like that. And we just drive on because they're not doing anything illegal. Mm-hmm. You might not like that, but
the other side of it too is knowing what you can do.
Yeah,
what you're there.
We're not really in the habit of demanding somebody identify themselves to us when they don't have to.
Right.
You know. So again, that is a very real conversation, and I hope that isn't. Not everyone's going to like that answer.
Sure.
No, but it's real.
And really, the reason why I said I appreciate the response is because there's a human response.
Sure.
What if somebody's not watching this? What they probably couldn't see is as you were trying to find an honest response, I did see your ears get red, and I was like, oh man, we should have talked about this question.
No.
But your response was a genuine response.
Sure.
One, like I said, it's not dismissive. It's, as where I'm sitting, it's fair to the person that's calling to, you know, if that's me walking around because I'm just thinking.
Sure.
And that's
which I have done.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you just gotta get up and walk.
Yeah, you do.
So, but let me flip that perspective a little bit, and not necessarily staying on that scenario, but let's talk about the other side of an interaction, or just the community in the force. Let's talk about the folks in your force. And what is one thing that is really important to you and to the Raytown Police Department for its force? Or not, I shouldn't say force. Let me rephrase that. What is one thing that's really important? You kind of hinted at it in our conversation before we recorded. That's really important for the police department to support its folks with. Yeah,
you know, there are two things. The one that I'll get to in just a second. But our chief, his department vision, or our mission statement, is one word: is professionalism. That's big, you know.
And what does that mean for the Raytown Police Department?
I don't want to go down like a religious, but everyone pretty much knows what the golden rule is, mm-hmm. Right? Treat people the way that you want to be treated. That's what it means to me. So have good interactions. Not every interaction is going to be good. It's just not. But a lot of the times when I was still a sergeant on the streets and we were dealing with an older person, I'm seeing my grandma or my grandpa in their face. Like, how would I want someone else in my position to be treating that person, or my aunt, or my mom, or my little sister, something like that, right? Everyone's a human. Everyone deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. That's ultimately what we're looking for. The second part of that is something we did kind of a sidebar into, is mental health. It's so important. I'll share a story of mine that kind of got me, it jerked a knot in my chain a little bit, more so than maybe some other folks that I deal with. And I'm afraid that I might not have taken it as seriously before this, but my brother committed suicide getting on 5 years ago now. So I did not deal with it as well as I thought I was going to. So coming out of that, I think it's made me much more sympathetic and empathetic with folks who are going through mental health crises in a way that I don't think that I was before that. Now, it was always important to me, but recognizing how real, whatever you want to call it, is post-traumatic stress is. And we have a job that's, one, very stressful, and going to force you into seeing things that most people shouldn't see and don't see. Whether that comes to folks who are deceased or have been shot or traumatized, stuff like that. And I realize I'm not selling the job all that well right now, but
but there's a reason.
Yeah,
but
somebody has to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody does have to do that. So yeah, that post-traumatic stress. I was in the military, and my first experience with post-traumatic stress was as a police officer. So it really does happen. I've learned. I expect I'll never learn everything, but I've learned so much about it in the last, even just a little bit previous to my experience, about what a healthy brain will do and how it responds to stress and post-traumatic stress, and how you should come out of that. Even though you're not going to be perfect, you can still carry on. So yeah, mental health, and the chief is also huge on board with that as well. His big thing is always talking about your front porch looking in.
First off, thank you for sharing and being so just vulnerable to share about your own personal experience. I had a situation with somebody in my family in this calendar year. Same thing. And it's one of those, it is one of those, you kind of just like come to the present in those moments. And if you're reflective, what's happening within myself, you were talking about how the brain operates, whether we want it to or not. And if we are aware of just, positive, healthy tendencies to mental health.
Sure.
My wife is a mental health professional, and I learn every day about how this brain is wired, because I'm like, wait, that's how that works? But one thing that I heard you say that was really interesting was the front porch looking in.
Sure. That's one of the big, our chief's mantras, and he's big on things like that and motivational sorts of things. But really, to me, that means attentiveness with your family, 100%. I mean, there's no more important folks on the planet than your family. And then kind of some self-check-ins, like unplug and do a self-assessment. How am I? Where am I? Am I okay? Am I not feeling 100% right? If not, how do I make that right? So we do a lot of that. We do a lot of talking about that as well. I think that you have to, even though, when we're not with the public, it's kind of a Shark Tank, and we make fun of each other and do all those sorts of things that you would kind of expect a locker room to be like. And that does help. It does. But after some more traumatic events that I've been through personally, we do kind of a big debrief with each other just to make sure that everybody's kind of tracking. And
are mental health professionals available or there, or
what? You should ask that.
Yeah.
So the state of Missouri a couple of years ago mandated. Now, when you start mandating things, folks aren't going to love it, but mandated that we have a mental health check-in every 5 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we're navigating that now. Excuse me, Raytown PD is. I obviously can't speak for any others, but we're navigating that now. So there is that. We have the employee assistance program, completely confidential if you're struggling a little bit. And then, we have co-responders.
Okay.
Who are clinicians that they actually work for Rediscover, but they're stationed at our station. And they specialize in helping us with mental health folks or folks who are in mental health crisis on the streets.
You're not the professional.
No.
What is that? What are those outcomes with having that professional there in some of those interactions?
So I try to tell their bosses this every time. Our co-responders are fantastic. 3 years ago, you could not have convinced me that this was going to be a good program.
Okay.
I was not sold. Initially, my thought was, great. Those are more people on the scene that we're going to have to try to keep safe. But then, we start working with them and we find out, okay, well, they're not riding in the car with us. They're going to show up once, like, we can determine whoever may be in a mental health crisis is no longer a danger to anyone. If they are, obviously that in the moment is not the right place for them. We'll get them to the hospital. So Our co-responders have radios. They will self-dispatch. Sometimes our officers will ask for them, and then we'll go and just start offering the resources that Rediscover offers to folks who are in mental health crises, or maybe not even in crises, but just dealing with mental health issues. So our co-responders, Michael and Olivia, shout out, are fantastic. And now you can't convince me that we could live without them.
That's great. Expanding the program out there, is there a desire for that? I know that might not necessarily be your all's call in terms of making that happen, but that level of interest?
There's an appetite for it, yes.
There's an appetite, yeah.
Yeah, they have a national conference and everything, the co-responders.
Good.
It's incredible. What was it? I think the appetite is for them to be, the co-responders to be department employees rather than Rediscover employees, because they're grant funded, and sometimes that,
that comes and goes.
It's a mess.
Yeah.
So we would, I know we would love to have Michael and Olivia on our payroll. The feasibility of that is above my pay grade.
Sure.
But, they are.
But it's
fantastic.
been noted, we're putting it out in the community, that there is a benefit to the community as a whole, but a benefit to the interactions with the community.
It's incredible
to have that option.
Michael Hunt is the hardest working man at Raytown Police Department. I'll just tell you that. He's our daytime co-responder.
Okay.
He's phenomenal.
It's and that's, I know that was part of one of some of the conversations in the last 2 years about policing and community of like, how do we, I heard you say the phrase, and I wish I wrote it down so I could say that again properly, but really meeting the expectation of the community.
Yeah, 100%.
And that seems to be one of the expectations of a lot of communities.
Yeah, it's going to sound like a tagline, and maybe it should, maybe it shouldn't. I'm not here to say that, but meeting the expectations of our community. What does the community expect of us? And the context in that was vehicle pursuits. Okay, there are going to be times when we're going to have to chase folks till the wheels on that car fall off. If we're talking about a homicide suspect,
situation
like
dictates.
100% it does. But for a license plate light out, give me a break. I mean,
sure.
No, nobody expects that. I lived through that in the early 2000s. I'm lucky that I did live through that. That's an inherently dangerous thing, and it really needs to be saved for those instances where we cannot let someone get away.
Sure.
So, again, there are a lot of younger folks that associate that specifically with police work. It's just not. Could it be an aspect of it? Sure, could be, but that is not what our public expects of us. What do they expect of us these days? Professional service, and responsiveness. Okay, cool. We can deal with that. That's not even a big ask.
Sure. And safe interactions, I think, are always paramount for both sides of that.
That's not a big ask either.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you said, this is probably going in the bloopers, but when you said police chase, if you think of police chases as like, my mind went to the other guys, and I aim for the bushes. And with the rock character in Samuel Jackson,
Dancing Highsmith.
It's not that, right?
It's
not that, but it is really. Man, we talk about managing expectations in all these different areas, but to actually hear someone say, "Oh no, we're not managing expectations; we're meeting them."
Yeah, for sure.
Is a real change in ideology.
We're trying.
I think the goal itself and saying we're going to try to meet expectations opposed to manage them.
Sure,
says a lot about intent.
Yeah.
Man, you've let me put you through the ringer on like some good conversation. I say through the ringer. We could have went real deep in some of these things, but. For what was supposed to be a pretty easy vanilla conversation, you went right into it and were unafraid to have just human interaction. So I appreciate that. I can't let you off the hook yet without telling you that you have a free promotional opportunity. What is going on with the Raytown Police Department? What should folks know that's coming up? I think there's one thing in particular.
Yeah, one thing in particular. I'm going to start off with our safety fair that's coming up this Saturday, which by the time anybody hears this...
Hopefully you went. You had a great time when you went to.
Yeah. So the safety fair is a really good opportunity for folks to get out and come and interact with us. And not just us, the fire department, the paramedics. I think that the sheriff's mounted posse still comes out. Our dog will be out there, Saren. We have the... bomb guys from Lee Summit come out and blow up a fruit.
It's always fun.
Yeah.
Explosions.
Yeah. So some of that, I think the highway patrol still brings out that crash car that's like on a, yeah. Okay. So there's that. But the big thing is the Raytown Citizens Police Academy. I've gotten to be a part of that every year since I don't know when, but we have a lot of fun, and I don't have the dates in my head.
Yeah, no, I got you. It's like we programmed some of this. No, so the Citizens Police Academy for the fall 2024 will go through. Oh, I said I had it. We'll go through October 2nd through November 13th, but everybody should act quickly because the deadline to apply is September 25th.
However, if you come in 26th, 27th, I'm sure that we can make some concessions.
Tell them that Captain Rogers sent you.
Tell him I sent you. The organizer will probably be pretty upset with me, but she'll get over it.
More folks, the merrier. So it's a 7-week program.
Sure.
What will I, let's say, jump into? What do I learn as a citizen?
Get an opportunity to hear, first and foremost, hear about all of the divisions within the department. Okay, so I will do a presentation on the patrol division. I also do the presentation on our SWAT team. You'll hear about our firearms program. You'll hear about our defensive tactics program. You'll hear about our K9, some of the other our public information officer program. Some of the other programs that we just do some stuff like that. Now, one of the things that I got the opportunity to start doing probably 7 or 8 years ago were some scenarios at the end, because I thought it would be. Now, I really had to go up the chain for this, but I thought it was important to put folks in a scenario at the end of the Citizens Police Academy to kind of see how the sausage is made, if you will. Really, it's pretty low key, but it does involve simunitions, and just kind of, you know what? Here's one of my taglines: you don't have to be tricked to be trained well.
Okay,
but you still got to perform. So we put folks through a car stop scenario through which they will have to use lethal force, and just kind of see how they deal with it.
Okay. That's at the end of the seventh? That's
yeah,
the seventh
week.
End.
Sure. It's kind of a culminating exercise that is supposed to be both informative and fun.
The important thing to note that this fund does not cost a thing, just your time.
Just your time, and maybe time's probably a pretty precious asset to a lot of folks.
Yeah,
but it is, I think
every Wednesday
evening.
Yep.
But I mean, again, you come out and you learn something, you're better off than you were, maybe 1% better than you were coming in, even just gathering some information. But yeah, we have a good time with it and try to keep it pretty light. There are some subjects that aren't as fun. We do a use of force presentation, though, also about the legal. What's the best way to say that? What legally entitles us to use force, what that looks like, and what we show some videos of what right looks like, and obviously what wrong looks like.
Yeah. Would this be a good? I'm a citizen, and some of the questions I've asked today, right, putting on the recruit's hat, but maybe just a citizen hat. If I had some of those questions, would this be a good place for me to learn more and maybe get a first-hand view?
It would be the place.
Okay.
It would be the place. But what I would love is for more. This is just me, though. More like we have a whole building that folks, the city, like everybody owns it, right? If you got questions, come up and talk to us. We're just, goobers like everybody else.
Yeah.
And most of us like to talk a lot. So if you got questions about anything, or you just, if your kiddos want to talk to the police, bring them on up, and we'll get an officer out to talk to them and just have some fun with it. I don't think there's, enough of that either. Because everybody is hurting for personnel, our officers tend to be pretty busy, but that does not mean we can't take time out of the day to talk to a kiddo or answer questions for somebody that went out of their way. I imagine
that's a good break of programming for folks.
Oh my God, yeah.
Before the minutia of the day. Well, listen, if you are just a regular citizen, somebody who's interested, potentially interested in maybe joining the force someday, the Citizens Police Academy may be for you. You must be at least 18 years of old. Let me try that again. Must at least be 18 years of age or older to participate, be in good standing in the community, So make sure that your pastor says good things about you when they call, and then you pass a thorough background check. Those pretty simple, requirements. Get that application in. Again, shooting for September 25th, but put on your application that Captain Rogers said you can send it in late if you miss a day. And that is going to go, we'll have it at the bottom of the screen here, to RPD Volunteer Corp, CORP, @gmail.com. And again, tell them Captain Rogers sent you. Final question, Captain Rogers, you're not related to the other one that was frozen and made into a hero, right?
I wish.
Doggone it. I gotta talk to this booking agent.
If there was a way for me to convince you guys that I was actually Captain America,
I was told we had an Avenger, but no. You'll have to do. No. It was great talking to you.
Thank you, Zach,
sincerely,
so much.
We probably could have just kept chewing the fat for a little bit.
I think so, yeah.
But thanks again to our sponsor, the Greater KC Homes, and again to the Raytown Quality School District for this fantastic digs, wonderful desk. The mic, it's going to stay with us too. So we'll see you next time on Talk Raytown, and I still am your host at the end of the episode. Zac Sweets, take it easy.